I never imagined I'd be sharing what happened to me on January 7, 2024. But I've come to realize I don't have a choice. I have to tell you. My name is James Bradley and I'm a 40-year-old husband, father, and office worker from Washington State. By all accounts, I was just an ordinary guy living an ordinary life. Until that night. For 11 minutes and 46 seconds, I was clinically dead. During that time, I experienced something far more real than anything I've ever known. I saw a glimpse of the future, especially what's coming in March 2025, and I'm convinced you need to hear it. Could change everything. January 7, 2024, started like any other gray, drizzly winter day in Washington. I'd worked a full shift at my 9-to-5 office job, feeling more drained than usual. The rain had started falling around noon, and by the time I got in my car to head home, the roads were slick with water and oil. Before leaving the office parking lot, I called my wife, Rebecca, to let her know I was on my way. She asked me to pick up milk from the corner store, nothing out of the ordinary. But it would be the last normal conversation we'd have before my entire life changed. It was about 6:30 p.m. when I got onto Interstate 5. Visibility was awful, but I wasn't driving recklessly, barely 35 miles per hour, just trying to get home safely. Rain hammered my windshield. My wipers fought to keep the glass clear, but the sky was dark, the streetlights offering little help. Out of nowhere, a pair of bright headlights cut through the darkness, heading straight for me. A large truck had spun out of control. I remember the headlights growing larger and brighter as it closed in. I had no time to move or react. My body instinctively tensed and then everything went black. Suddenly I was floating. I felt no pain or physical sensation at all, just a calm clarity, like my mind had been wiped clean of worry. Below me I saw the terrible crash scene. My small sedan looked like a crumpled can, the hood steaming as twisted metal hissed in the rain. The truck driver had already jumped out, pacing in shock. Emergency responders arrived fast and started working on me, trying desperately to revive my lifeless body. I watched in a strange, peaceful detachment, like I was an observer, not a participant in the chaos. I noticed something behind me, a pull, gentle at first but growing stronger. When I turned, I saw what I can only describe as a tunnel of living golden light. It felt like it radiated not just illumination but warmth, love, and a magnetism that drew me forward. As I drifted closer, all the noise from below, the sirens, the shouting, faded away until I couldn't hear them at all. Everything around me vanished, and the golden tunnel became my entire world. The light felt alive, pulsing with an energy I've never known. At the far end of this tunnel, I saw a figure glowing so brightly that at first I couldn't make out any details. But my soul recognized him immediately. It was Jesus. I wasn't afraid. Instead, I was overwhelmed by a tidal wave of awe, love, and peace all at once. The moment I realized who stood before me, my entire being trembled, not in terror but in reverence. He didn't speak with sound. Instead, he spoke directly into my spirit. "James," he said in a voice so tender, yet more powerful than thunder. It was as if he knew every thought I'd ever had, every dream, every sorrow. Before I could even form a coherent thought, Jesus touched me, just a light touch on my shoulder. In that instant, the tunnel disappeared. I found myself standing on a city street that looked somewhat like downtown Seattle. The buildings were sleek, modern, but there was something off about them, like the soul of the city was missing. People hurried past, caught up in their own worlds. No one smiled, no one connected. They appeared more like robots than humans. Jesus stood beside me, observing the scene. A woman entered a coffee shop, waved her hand over a scanner, and a small glowing light flickered under her skin. She walked away with her coffee without any cash or card, perfectly normal in this future scene. "This is where it begins," Jesus said softly. "They won't see it for what it truly is." I didn't fully grasp what he meant yet. It just seemed like advanced technology. But then my surroundings shifted again. All at once, I was in a huge conference room filled with prominent world leaders, scientists, and public figures. Screens lined the walls, flashing news feeds and data. A date stood out in large letters. March 2025. A man stepped to the front. I couldn't see his face clearly, there was a hazy distortion over it, but he projected confidence and calm. People seemed to trust him instantly. Behind him on a massive screen appeared images of a new microimplant, a tiny glowing mark under the skin. He spoke in a voice that seemed to resonate with hope. "We have found the ultimate solution for security, health, and prosperity. This is the future." It promised unprecedented convenience, safety, and economic stability. People erupted into applause. Even world leaders seemed relieved. Jesus' voice echoed in my soul. This is the moment of deception. They will not see it for what it truly is. The vision fast-forwarded, showing me how people around the globe lined up to receive this mark. Nobody was holding them at gunpoint. There were no big threats. Instead, those without it couldn't buy food, withdraw money, or receive medical care. I watched a devout man resist at first. His wife and children were starving. His employer refused to let him work without the implant. Out of desperation, he gave in. The moment he received the implant, a spiritual darkness seemed to cloud his eyes. He didn't scream or convulse, he just changed. Quietly, subtly. Yet, you could almost see his connection to God fade. Jesus turned to me, sorrow deep in his eyes. They will not even realize what they have lost. Then I saw how it all began so innocently. It started as a convenient payment method. Then it became your ID. Then it tracked your health. Step by step, it seeped into every aspect of life. People welcomed it, even pastors encouraged it. Some churches said, "This isn't the mark of the beast, it's just technology. God knows your heart." Jesus shook his head. Even my people will be deceived. I witnessed social pressure turn the tide. Those who refused the mark were labeled conspiracy theorists or extremists. They lost access to jobs, financial systems, even their homes. Some churches remained steadfast, but many compromised, believing that a small, harmless chip couldn't possibly have spiritual consequences. Jesus spoke directly into my mind. The greatest deception is the one that looks so much like truth that few can tell the difference. Then came a global crisis. Natural disasters, economic collapse, violent conflicts. People were desperate. Another leader, even more charismatic, stepped forward, offering solutions to end war, hunger, and financial ruin. Nations yielded to him without question, calling him a hero. But Jesus said, "He will not come with force. He will come with solutions." At first, it brought stability. Then, those who resisted the system started disappearing. Some were arrested for so-called misinformation, others lost their homes or bank accounts overnight. Even churches that spoke against the new order were shut down. The world rushed toward a false sense of peace while Jesus whispered to me, "This is the trap." Suddenly, I could see into the spiritual realm. Waves of dark energy covered cities. People went about their days, smiling, working, living, yet they were spiritually numb. The technology they accepted wasn't just in their bodies, it was in their minds. It dampened their ability to hear from God. They could still speak of faith, go to church and sing worship songs, but there was a hollow ring to it all. Jesus pointed at a family in their living room. Father, mother, 2 children. They had the new implants. Life seemed perfect. No health problems, stable income, everything they needed. But their spirits were dim like a candle behind thick glass. They had no awareness of what they'd lost. The enemy does not need to take away their faith, Jesus told me. He only needs to distract them until they no longer seek me. I saw heartbreaking scenes. A father at the dinner table, lost in the digital interface glowing on his wrist. His children tried to share their day, but he barely looked up. A mother pleading with her teenage son not to get more upgrades. He brushed her off, calling her old-fashioned and paranoid. Churches dividing over whether to accept this new system. Some pastors called it God's blessing, while others cried out that it was spiritual poison. The ones who refused were mocked by the rest. Jesus showed me a woman weeping as her husband walked out, saying he couldn't stay with someone so backwards. She whispered, "I'd rather lose you than lose my soul." Jesus' voice was filled with sorrow. Many will face this choice and many will choose wrongly. In the visions, I realized the final step wasn't forced at first. It was embraced. People took the mark for convenience, for security, for a better life. But soon it was mandatory, no mark, no living in society. Refusal meant homelessness, starvation, and isolation. Worse than the physical consequences was the spiritual change. Those who accepted it found their prayers hollow, their worship mechanical, their hearts distant. They assumed they still had faith, but they had lost the very presence of God without even noticing. I saw a man trying to buy groceries the old way. The cashier shook her head. "We don't take that anymore," she said. Everyone around him stared as if he was insane. The hostility in their eyes was more chilling than any physical threat. Jesus said, "This is how the enemy works, not by force but by exclusion." Then I saw a group of people who still resisted. They had no implants, no place in the new system. They were hidden, camping in remote areas, huddling in basements and old barns. Their numbers were small, yet their faith burned bright. They prayed fervently, worshipped with hearts on fire, and experienced miracles unlike anything I've seen. Food would appear when they prayed. The sick were healed simply by a touch. In one scene they were surrounded by soldiers aiming modern weapons. The guns jammed. The soldiers, confused and frightened, retreated. Angels stood guard over these believers, invisible to the enemy. Jesus said, "I will protect my own in ways the world cannot understand." I saw them walking through high-tech checkpoints undetected, as if invisible to cameras scanning for those without implants. God provided shelter, food, and supernatural peace. It was the wilderness, but it felt like holy ground. Finally, Jesus spoke with a voice that resonated through my entire being. "Tell them to prepare now before the choice is taken from them." He showed me two types of people in the critical moment of decision. Those who had built their faith deeply, who prayed daily and knew God's voice intimately. They recognized the deception and stood firm no matter the cost. Those who waited, assuming they'd resist when the time came. But when life grew hard, when banks froze their assets, when their families starved, they caved, taking the mark with trembling hands. I saw strong Christians compromise step by step, until they could no longer discern truth from lies. The deception crept in so gradually that they never noticed they had drifted from God. Jesus said with sadness in his eyes, "Many will wait until it's too late. They will beg me to help them, but they will have already chosen their master." Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. I felt his sorrow, not anger, for the countless souls that would be lost. "I have given them everything," he said. "I have warned them through my word, through my prophets, through my spirit." Still many refused to see. A wave of love and heartache radiated from him. I sensed how desperately he wants every person to turn to him before it's too late. Then he said, "The days ahead will be the hardest humanity has ever faced, but my people need not be afraid. I will be with them, guiding and protecting them. They must choose now whom they will serve." My perspective shifted again to the near future. I saw how cunningly the enemy would roll out the final plan. Small, convenient technologies first. Implants for quick payments, AI interfaces for medical monitoring, chips for IDs. Everything seemed beneficial and advanced. Gradually, these devices started influencing thoughts and emotions, numbing people to spiritual conviction. Churches embraced it as a tool to track attendance, make donations easier, and even help with personalized prayer apps. Hardly anyone noticed the slow decline in their passion for God. People still went through the motions, singing songs, volunteering, but their hearts were dull. They traded genuine faith for religious routine. When a massive world crisis shook everyone, natural disasters, nations in chaos, government and corporate leaders declared, "A new system is coming to save us." People no longer had the energy or discernment to resist. Fear and hunger made them cling to any lifeline offered. Trusted religious leaders went on television reassuring, "This is not the mark of the beast, folks. It's a gift from God to help humanity rebuild." So more people lined up, swayed by the very voices they once trusted. Jesus looked at me. "Only those who are deeply rooted in me will see the truth. Everyone else will follow the lie." I saw light in the darkness, small groups of believers who recognized the deception. They refused to receive the implant, even as society called them crazy. Their own families sometimes disowned them. They lost jobs, homes, and bank accounts. Yet the more they lost in the world, the stronger their faith grew. In one heartbreaking moment, I saw a man trying to warn his brother. "Don't take it," he pleaded. "This is what Christ warned us about." His brother just laughed. "You're paranoid," he said. "I need to feed my family." He took the implant and his eyes turned cold, distant, as if the light in them flickered out. Among these small bands of faithful believers, I witnessed miracles that rivaled anything recorded in Scripture. A woman prayed over an empty pot, and suddenly it was filled with steaming stew. A child, deathly ill, was healed the instant her mother prayed in Jesus' name. Soldiers tried to arrest them, but either their weapons malfunctioned or they simply couldn't see the believers standing right in front of them. Jesus said, "The enemy will come with power, but my power is greater. Tell them not to be afraid." In one scene, a believer walked unnoticed through a city swarming with drones and biometric scanners. It was as if God cloaked him in invisibility. Elsewhere, storms ravaged entire neighborhoods, but an invisible shield protected the homes of believers who prayed for mercy. Then Jesus showed me a door in the sky, formed of brilliant light, slowly closing. People ran toward it, desperately trying to enter. Some pounded on it, crying out to be let inside. Others stood back, arms crossed, mocking those who ran forward as alarmists. And still the door moved inch by inch, sealing shut. When it finally closed, those left outside were gripped with unspeakable terror. They pounded on the door, sobbing, but it was too late. Jesus whispered, just as in the days of Noah. I saw a floating clock, its hands ticking down with barely any time left. Most people carried on with their daily routines, shopping, working, scrolling their feeds, as if they couldn't see it. Then the clock struck 0. A trumpet blast sounded and the world changed in an instant. Darkness fell. Demonic forces roamed the streets openly, and no one without God's Spirit could perceive or resist them. Two groups emerged. Those who prepared, they'd given their whole hearts to Jesus long before the final crisis. They recognized the deception early, refused the mark, and found supernatural shelter in God's presence. Those who waited, they assumed they'd somehow be ready later. When everything collapsed, they panicked and grabbed at whatever security was offered, including the implant. Too late, they realized what they'd done. They begged for mercy, but the spiritual damage was already sealed. Jesus' voice echoed, "There will be a moment when the choice becomes permanent, when those who belong to me are marked in my protection, and those who have chosen the world can no longer hear my call." Then, just as suddenly as these visions came, I was back in my body. I gasped for air, bolting upright in a hospital bed. A nurse rushed in, eyes wide. "Oh my God, you're awake. We lost you for almost 12 minutes, James. It's a miracle you're back." I wasn't thinking about hospital statistics or near-death survival rates. My mind reeled with everything Jesus had just shown me. I felt like an alien in my own world, carrying knowledge I never asked for but was now responsible to share. In the days that followed, I tried confiding in a friend. He chalked it up to a hallucination, a random burst of dying neurons. Even Rebecca, my wife, looked uncertain, though she saw how convicted and changed I was. Then I remembered Jesus' words. "Don't worry about who believes you. Your task is to share." So here I am, sharing this with you because I must. The date March 2025 haunts me. I can already see the subtle changes in our technology, our culture, our spiritual climate, exactly how Jesus showed me. The reason I'm telling you isn't to terrify you, it's to warn you and urge you, prepare your heart now. Build a real relationship with Jesus. Talk to him daily, study the Bible as though it's your lifeline. Teach your children to know and love the Lord, not just attend church. Stay watchful of technologies and systems that promise convenience but quietly demand your soul. Gather with like-minded believers who are willing to stand firm in truth, even when it's unpopular or costly. Remember, the greatest trick of the enemy is to present something so helpful and normal that nobody questions it. But once you realize what's happening, you might find it's already too late. If there's one thing I can't erase from my memory, it's the look in Jesus' eyes, sorrow and love so profound they defy understanding. He wants everyone to come to him. He wants to protect you, guide you, and give you eternal life in a kingdom without pain or deception. But he also honors your freedom to choose. The enemy may control the world, Jesus said, but he does not control eternity. Those who remain faithful to me will reign with me in the kingdom that is coming. I know this sounds unbelievable. I get it. If someone had told me this story before my near-death experience, I'm not sure I would have believed them. But I lived it, or more accurately, I died and saw it. Now I'm convinced it's real, and I have to at least try to reach anyone who will listen. Please don't dismiss this as a fever dream or a wild imagination. Take it to God. Ask him yourself. Dive into the scriptures and see how prophecy lines up with what I've described. Time is short and the changes are already underway, so quietly that most folks don't even notice. But you don't have to be afraid. Jesus is stronger than any technology, any government, any deception. If you hold tight to him, you will see God's power in ways you can't imagine. Prepare now, spiritually, mentally, maybe even physically. Yet above all, prepare your heart. Because a time is coming when every person will face a choice that cannot be undone. I'm sharing this because he told me to. What you do with it, that's up to you. I pray you'll believe before the door closes, because once it does, there's no turning back. May you run toward that door of grace while there is still time. God bless you and stay awake.